Hello friends, and welcome back to a slightly different tutorial today from my usual work. Today, as I'm speaking, Storm Eunice is currently battering at my windows. We are experiencing a fierce storm here in the UK, so rather than the painting I had planned for today, I decided to change my plans and demonstrate to you a technique I'd like to call sketching spontaneously with watercolour, trying to capture the feel of a moment spontaneously and freshly on the paper with some paint. You can see I've just drawn in a very simple horizon line, a little bit of headland, and here is the coast. I'm going to do a beach scene here. So I'm starting today as usual, wetting the top of the paper for the sky. My colours were just on screen, I'll also pop them in the description below. So yes, just wetting the top half of the paper using my Princeton Neptune brush. You can use any brush you like for this, a nice big wash brush, but this is just my preferred brush at the moment. So now for the first colour, I'm just quickly sweeping in some raw sienna from the top left corner, trying to keep some nice diagonal marks and putting it in quickly whilst the paper is still wet. And next I'm using indigo for the sky. This is an oncoming storm painting, so I wanted one part of the sky to still be light, lit with that strange, almost uncanny glow you sometimes get in the path of big storms. You get an almost yellowish tint to a glowing sky and glowing clouds as the storm rolls in behind. So that's what I wanted to capture today, which is why I used the burnt sienna, and now I'm just sweeping the indigo across. I don't mind if it mixes up a little bit. You can see I'm trying to do nice big sort of spontaneous sweeps of this lovely colour, and started quite pale, and I'm just going to keep darkening it up, particularly in this top right hand corner, which is where I'm going to put the approaching storm front. And you can see I'm just putting these bold, spontaneous strokes into the sky, not being too precious about it. Like I said before, this is for me akin to sketching really with watercolour, rather than doing a careful and neat finished work. This is trying to capture a feeling rather than a tidy finished painting. So this is the approaching storm in the top corner. I've layered up my indigo with a little bit of Payne's grey now, just to start getting some really nice darks in there. And what I'm going to do now is use my water bottle, you can see here, and just spray along the top, just miss that top corner, lift the paper and pull it upright vertically to try and get the paint to start dripping down and diffusing down the paper into this soft sky below, and to get a real directionality. You can see I'm spraying it again to get the flow that I want, and to get ideally a diagonal sweep from right to left, this approaching storm front, and this here is going to be the rain drifting down through the sky, pelting down really, reaching down towards the sea below. Just tipping and tilting it until I feel happy with it. You can see just using a little bit of tissue there to clean up the excess water that's dripping off the side. Always important to try and keep clean and tidy. You can see here the water spray has done a fantastic job of getting that huge intimidating cloud bank set in place, and as I'm just putting in a few extra drifting clouds here very lightly, just using a very light touch and a little more paint spray, you can see that that dark sky is still diffusing down very naturally, like a rain cloud coming down to meet the ocean. I really enjoy this type of spontaneous painting. The water bottle makes it very exciting because you never quite know exactly what it's going to do or where it's going to go, which is another reason I call this sort of spontaneous sketching. You work with what you've got, so to speak. I'm leaving this wet for now. I'm going to let that sky continue diffusing down. You can see my painting is at a slight angle, about 45 degrees on my easel. I'm just taking out that bottom line of water that's collecting there along the horizon line with a clean damp brush, and I'm just putting in the headland, distant headland, which I'm using Van Dyke brown and some Payne's grey to just put in a nice dark distant headland. The paper is still wet and I'm allowing the brown to diffuse slightly upwards into the sky to give a fuzzy edge. I don't need it to be too crisp for this one. I'd like to give it a little hint of trees or bushes or any other sort of detail. You can see there I just managed to put in a little bit of extra darks, and that headland is diffusing nicely. The sky is continuing to drift down. You can really start to see the differentiation of the indigo splitting out a little from the Payne's grey, creating a beautiful granulated effect on that right hand side. And now I'm just using my Mottler brush to put in the sea. This is essentially my paint water that I'm using right now. This is the colour of it after using all that indigo. Essentially it's just very, very dilute grey, which I'm using to put in the base colour for the sea. Like I said before, spontaneous sketching, quick, decisive lines, trying to keep them straight where necessary, leaving plenty of white sparkle for the rough water in the sea that's been churned up by the storm. I'm now just adding a little bit of extra indigo into this lovely grey sea to just reflect the leaden sky that's coming in from that right hand side. And now to add a little bit of extra dimensionality to the sea, I'm using a piece of tissue folded up so the crisp folded edge is against the paint, and I'm just sort of slicing it into the paint there. You can see it's leaving these lovely crisp pale marks, not completely white but pale enough to be indicative, I think, of a rough wild sea there. This is a lovely technique with the tissue for pulling paint out and leaving these really interesting marks on the water. And now, sorry about my hand being in the way a little bit there. I'm just trying to show you how to do some really simple reflections from that headland as well with a flat brush and a little bit of paint. This is me realising that my hand was in front of the camera. But yes, just put the flat edge against your headland there and just pull a little paint down into the water just follow the thickness of the headland and you'll get some really easy, simple, loose reflections there. And now I'm just going to put in the beach. This is a slightly muddied up raw sienna mixed with a little bit of the indigo Payne's grey for the base colour. And now you can see I'm swiping in some darker Van Dyke brown, sort of connecting it up to that headland there, putting in the darker colours, still trying to maintain some lightness in this shoreline while sweeping across some darker colours. Plenty of dry brush sparkle there, using a brush which is not too loaded up with paint and water. You want it quite wet, obviously, otherwise the paint won't run, but not completely saturated, to get this lovely sweeping dry brush. You can see I'm still doing these lovely sort of spontaneous sweeping lines, trying to be quite decisive. Want a few darks in this beach as well as the white to sort of really throw off the contrast of these bright white areas that I'm leaving between the sea and the shore to emphasize the foaminess and the roughness of the storm-tossed waters. And now, just for a little bit of detail, just to finish this off, I'm creating a rugged fence using my flat brush. You can see just how quickly and easily this is going in. You can use any flat brush here. I'm using a couple of different ones just because of the width, using a large one as a 3/4 inch brush that I used to do the horizontal line because it's the widest one I own and it's the quickest. And now I'm just switching out to a 1/2 inch flat brush to put in the fence posts, just because the other one was a little bit large, and I want them to diminish in size as they get further across the paper. There you go, you see just how quickly and easily that little bit of detail went in. I'm just using the flat brush again with some Payne's grey to introduce some more darks to the paper and introduce some shading around the base of this fence or breakwater, whatever it is. Whatever it is, I like it. Just stippling in a bit of shadow around the individual fence posts and sweeping along some darks, putting a few more dark tones into the actual beach. There we are, you see, not being too precious about these shadows. I decided to pop in another fence using exactly the same technique that I just showed you. You can see it's created this lovely stretchy breakwater. It's just enough detail to draw the eye and hold it, and to just pull out of this lovely loose sort of painting sketch. And now for the final touch, I decided to throw in some gulls flying in the face of the storm, because why not? The painting's dry now. I took it away and dried it with a hairdryer because the sky was very wet, as you can imagine, after spraying it, and I was excited to finish the painting and trying to ignore the raging storm outside. So I used a hairdryer to dry it all, so you can see I'm able to rest my hand on the paper and put in a few birds. Probably too many birds. I probably should have stuck to just a handful, but you know me, I love my birds, and call this bird anxiety perhaps. Worry about the storm made me put in far too many birds, that's my excuse. But yes, here we are with the finished painting. I really hope you enjoyed watching this. I know it's a little different from some of my other work, which is I'm quite careful to keep quite polished and neat. This was a lot more spontaneous, like I said, a watercolour sketch, if you like, trying to capture the moment that we are currently in today in the UK with Storm Eunice. I really hope that the storm passes soon without any further damage or loss of life to all folks involved. So on that note, thank you everybody for watching. Please let me know in the comments below if this is the sort of video you enjoyed watching, if you'd like to see more sort of spontaneous painting like this. And yes, thank you everybody, and happy painting all, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the next video.